In May, we went on a one-week road trip to the lower part of Bavaria in Germany. We visited the castles of Bavarian King Ludwig II, explored the city of Munich, and visited the Hellabrunn Zoo. On our way back, we also stopped in Austria to see the village of Hallstatt. Our journey began on a rainy Monday morning when we set off from Ljubljana toward Germany. We drove to Austria, past Hohenwerfen Castle and the city of Salzburg. We didn't stop there, as we had already visited both. We highly recommend visiting the castle as well as exploring Salzburg. If you'd like to watch videos from our trip, you'll find the links below the description. Our first stop was Lake Chiemsee, where we took a boat to the island of Herrenchiemsee and visited the first palace of King Ludwig II, Herrenchiemsee Palace. The palace was inspired by the Palace of Versailles in France. Ludwig II admired King Louis XIV, the so-called Sun King, and the entire Bourbon monarchy. Although he lived 2 centuries later, he dreamed of living in that era. Ludwig II was also passionate about theater and music. His favorite composer, whom he also financially supported, was Richard Wagner, who became his friend and confidant. Herrenchiemsee Palace was the third of the castles Ludwig II began building, but it was never completed. At first he wanted to build a replica of Versailles in Linderhof, but the location was too small. So he needed to find a new location, which he found on the so-called Men's Island. With the purchase of the island, he also got the Augustinian monastery, where he stayed while supervising the construction of the palace. Today, visitors can see his former bedroom and kitchen inside the monastery. Herrenchiemsee Palace was King Ludwig II's most expensive project. He spent more money on it than on his other 2 castles together. The most expensive things in the palace were the hand-embroidered wall tapestries in the state bedchamber. They alone cost more than a whole island. Ludwig II built this palace to honor the French King Louis XIV. Herrenchiemsee Palace was built in the French Rococo style. Ludwig II didn't want to make an exact copy of Versailles. He only copied the main part of it, which includes the Great Hall of Mirrors, the Hall of Peace, the Hall of War, and the state bedchamber. Before he died, Ludwig II also built the left wing of the palace, but after his death it was demolished because it had no purpose. King Ludwig II was a solitary and nocturnal person. He slept during the day and walked around the palace by candlelight at night. His dinner was in the middle of the night. In the dining room he had a liftable table that descended in the floor below, where it was set with food and then raised back up, allowing him to dine without being disturbed. However, he didn't like the feeling of eating alone, so his meals had to be prepared for several people. Sometimes he imagined he was dining with his beloved French King Louis XIV. The palace garden is an identical replica of the central part of the gardens at Versailles, featuring 2 large pools, the Latona fountain with 2 symmetrically designed gardens, and the Apollo fountain. But the Apollo fountain and a boat dock were never completed. In Herrenchiemsee Palace there is also a museum of King Ludwig II. The museum focuses on his life and features several of his portraits. This is the only place where you can see his portraits, as he forbade it in his castles. The museum also includes the original bedroom from Linderhof Palace and some furniture from the Munich residence where Ludwig lived as a young prince. The section of the Munich residence he lived in was destroyed during World War II. If you visit the Munich residence, you won't see or hear anything about his life there. Across the island Herrenchiemsee there are many walking trails. If you have time, we recommend a walk around the island. After visiting Herrenchiemsee Palace, we drove to the town of Oberammergau, which is located near our next destination, Linderhof Palace. We stayed overnight in a small hotel with an excellent breakfast. The next morning we drove to Linderhof Palace. Here once stood the Royal Hunting Lodge, where King Ludwig II went with his father. He loved this place, not for the hunting, but for his deep admiration for nature. Originally, Ludwig wanted to build a replica of Versailles here, but due to the limited space, that wasn't possible. Instead, he decided to transform the existing hunting lodge into a beautiful palace. That's how Linderhof Palace was created. The interior of the palace is decorated in the Baroque style. Inside, at the entrance, there is a statue of the French Sun King Louis XIV. In the palace, you can also see a life-size porcelain peacock, which was Ludwig's favorite animal. Like in Herrenchiemsee, Linderhof also features a liftable dining table and several rooms dedicated to the French king. Ludwig II adored his Linderhof and spent most of his life there. It was the smallest of the 3 castles he built and the only one that was fully completed. The palace garden is designed in the English style. In front of the palace there is a big pool with a fountain that shoots water 25 meters high. Behind the pool there are stairs leading to the Temple of Venus. Later, Ludwig wanted to build a theater there, but he never did. Ludwig II was a great admirer of theater. He attended over 400 performances, at least 200 of them were private. He also wanted to build a theater in Munich, but even Richard Wagner opposed the idea, fearing the high cost could threaten his financial support from the king. Ludwig II never married. For a time, he was engaged to his cousin, Duchess Sophie, with whom he shared a deep admiration for Richard Wagner. However, Ludwig broke off the engagement and chose to remain alone in his dream world for the rest of his life. From his notes, it is evident that he had homosexual thoughts. Because he was raised Catholic, he considered these thoughts sinful. In his youth, Ludwig II was a handsome young king. He was tall and elegant, with wavy dark hair and blue eyes. He was adored by many women. He ascended the throne at just 18 years old, after the unexpected death of his father. Unprepared for the responsibility, he had to abandon his studies and take on the duties of a king. But let's return to Linderhof Park. I'll tell you more about Ludwig's life later on. Linderhof Park combines everything Ludwig II loved: France during the time of the Sun King, Oriental culture, and romantic tales of the Middle Ages. In the park there is also an artificial Venus grotto, which was reopened this year after several years of restoration. We highly recommend visiting. It's a truly unique experience. The grotto is equipped with sound and visual effects. It was inspired by Wagner's opera Tannhauser and the famous Blue Grotto on the island of Capri. Ludwig II loved Oriental art and culture. At the World's Fair in Paris, he saw the Moorish kiosk and liked it so much that he bought it. He set it in Linderhof Park. The inside of the kiosk is full of bright Oriental colors and stained glass. The main piece is a Bohemian glass peacock throne symbolizing royal dignity. On the Linderhof estate there is also a hut inspired by Wagner's opera Die Walküre. The original stood at the foot of Mount Kreuzspitze but was destroyed by fire. A reconstructed version was later built in the park. Another Oriental-style building in the park is the Moroccan house, which Ludwig also discovered at the Paris World's Fair. It was originally placed elsewhere but was moved to Linderhof Park in 1998. In the park there is also the Chapel of Saint Anne, which stood there even before Linderhof Palace was built. Ludwig II often took night slide rides, usually heading to remote mountain lodges. One of his most famous retreats was a lodge on top of Mount Schanchen near Garmisch-Partenkirchen. The interior of this Mount Lodge is decorated in the Turkish style. Ludwig II visited it every year on his birthday, August the 25th. On the third day, we visited Hohenschwangau and Neuschwanstein castles, located in the village of Schwangau near Lake Alpsee. Hohenschwangau Castle was formerly known as Schwanstein and once belonged to the Knights of Schwangau. It was heavily damaged during the Napoleonic Wars. In 1832, the future King Maximilian II, father of King Ludwig II, acquired the ruins and had the castle rebuilt in the neo-Gothic style. The castle then served as a royal family summer residence, where Ludwig spent much of his childhood. Later, he lived there with his mother. As a child, Ludwig was deeply influenced by the surrounding mountain landscape and the romantic imagery of Hohenschwangau Castle, which became the foundation of his dreams and the inspiration for building Neuschwanstein Castle. Ludwig Otto Friedrich Wilhelm was born on August 25, 1845, at Nymphenburg Palace. His father was King Maximilian II of Bavaria, and his mother was Marie Frederick of Prussia. He also had a younger brother Otto, who was born 3 years later. Their education was strict and disciplined, as their father wanted them to grow into diligent and hard-working princes. However, they had very different personalities. Ludwig was shy and introverted, while Otto was cheerful, outgoing, and sociable. At the age of 16, Ludwig saw Wagner's opera Lohengrin for the first time and was completely captivated. From that moment on, he became a great admirer of Wagner, the theater, and romantic tales. During his studies, Ludwig's father, King Maximilian II, died unexpectedly, forcing the young prince to abandon his education and accede the throne. One of his first acts as a monarch was to seek out Richard Wagner, who was living in poverty. Ludwig began to support him financially, enabling the composer to continue creating beautiful music. However, as a ruler, Ludwig II held no real power. All decisions were made by his ministers and cabinet. He was merely a puppet on strings, expected to sign documents and approve decisions made by others. In 1866, the Austro-Prussian War broke out, and Bavaria sided with its ally, Austria. Austria's defeat was a significant blow to both Bavaria and King Ludwig II. After the defeat, Bavaria was forced into alliance with Prussia. Not long afterward, Prussia provoked a war with France. Bavaria was obliged to join Prussia in the attack against Ludwig's beloved France. Prussia emerged victorious. Ludwig's brother Otto fought in both wars. His traumatic experience on the battlefield during the Franco-Prussian War led to severe depression and insomnia. Shortly afterward, his physician, Dr. Bernhard von Guden, diagnosed him with a mental illness. Otto spent the rest of his life in isolation under constant medical supervision. Years later, the same doctor declared Ludwig II mentally ill, even though he had never examined him. From Hohenschwangau Castle, Ludwig often observed the old ruins near the Polat Gorge and dreamed of building his own castle there, one even more magnificent than Hohenschwangau. After Ludwig realized he had lost all governing power, he began to withdraw into his dream world. He envisioned scenes from operas and began building Neuschwanstein Castle, where he hoped to create his ideal fantasy world. The rooms of Neuschwanstein Castle are entirely decorated with scenes from romantic medieval dramas. The first part of the castle to be completed was the red building at the entrance, which included a small apartment where Ludwig stayed for some time. However, construction was heavily delayed due to the difficult terrain. Ludwig supervised the work even from his room in Hohenschwangau Castle, where he had placed a telescope by the window to observe the building site. Neuschwanstein Castle was equipped with the most advanced technology of its time. It featured running water and heating on all floors, and the toilets were fitted with automatic flushing systems. The king could summon his servants using an electric bell, and they could see exactly which room the call came from. The castle even had telephones, and the kitchen was spacious and modern. In my opinion, the most beautiful room in the castle is the throne hall. It is truly fascinating, decorated with scenes of saints. A large chandelier shaped like a crown hangs from the ceiling, and to the right is the throne platform. But the throne itself was never delivered during Ludwig's lifetime, and the order was eventually cancelled. The absence of the throne symbolizes Ludwig's fate and the fact that he never truly ruled as an absolute monarch. Ludwig strongly identified with the hero Parzival from the legend of the Holy Grail. Like Parzival, he too sought redemption and the Grail. For Ludwig, Neuschwanstein was his Mons Salvat. He believed that whoever possessed the Holy Grail would be redeemed from all sins. Near Neuschwanstein Castle is also Mary's Bridge, which offers a stunning view of the castle. King Ludwig II wanted to remain an enigma both to himself and to others. He built his dream castle solely for himself and didn't want the public to see them. However, the construction of these castles pushed him into enormous debt and put his entire monarchy at risk. His ministers feared that the blame would fall on them and began interpreting his extravagant spending and withdrew from public life as a sign of mental illness. Based on this, they declared him unfit to rule. Dr. von Guden diagnosed Ludwig as mentally ill without conducting any medical evaluation. On June 9, 1886, Ludwig was officially declared insane and removed from the throne. On June 12th, he was arrested at Neuschwanstein Castle, where he had spent his final days. He was taken to Berg Castle, where on the following day, June 13th, he was found dead in Lake Starnberg alongside Dr. von Guden. Today, a memorial cross stands in the shallow waters of Lake Starnberg, marking the place of his death. King Ludwig II never saw Neuschwanstein Castle completed. It remained a construction site throughout his life. He had also planned to build a tower with a chapel at the center of the courtyard, but this was never realized. Today, white cobblestones in the courtyard mark the spot where the tower would have stood. Despite Ludwig's wish to keep the castle private, Neuschwanstein was opened to the public just 7 weeks after his death. This is where the story of King Ludwig II ends, but it's only the midpoint of our journey. After visiting the castles, we drove to Munich, where we stayed overnight and explored the city the next day. We visited the old city gates and the new town hall, built in the neo-Gothic style. It was constructed because the old town hall had become too small, and in 1874 it became the new seat of the city administration. Today it houses the city council, the mayor's offices, and part of the municipal government. The old town hall still stands on Marienplatz. We took a walk to Karlsplatz and to the Neptune fountain, which offers a view of the courthouse. Nearby is also the Wittelsbach fountain. The main attraction in Munich is the Munich residence, the former royal palace. We highly recommend visiting the Munich residence, but be prepared that the audio guide tour lasts about 3 hours, so don't go there hungry. Next to the residence, there is also a beautiful park worth strolling through. Along the way, we also saw several churches. To end the day, we walked through the English Garden, which is the largest park in Munich. If you'd like to see the full video of our day in Munich, I've added a link below the description. On the 5th day, we visited the Hellabrunn Zoo. On the 6th day, we had planned to visit Nymphenburg Palace. Unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be, as we lost the car keys. Luckily, we found a specialist who was able to make a new set of keys for us that same day. So in the afternoon, we were able to continue our journey to our next destination in Austria, the village of Hallstatt, where we stayed overnight in a nearby town. Before leaving Germany, we stopped at Lidl to return the water bottles we had been collecting throughout the trip. With a refund, we treated ourselves to some sweets. On the 7th day, we walked through the village of Hallstatt and admired the view of Lake Hallstatt and the surrounding hills. Hallstatt is also home to a salt mine, which gave the village its name. We didn't visit the salt mine as we found the entrance fee too expensive, but we did take the cable car up the hill above Hallstatt. At the top there is a viewing platform that offers a stunning panoramic view of Lake Hallstatt. This was the final stop of our journey. From there, we returned home safe and sound. You can watch the full video of Hallstatt on my channel, the link is in the description.